Play the lottery with Jackpocket. What's Jackpocket? Jackpocket is the lottery app that lets you play New Jersey lottery games right on your phone. People have won over $5 million playing the lottery on Jackpocket. Download Jackpocket and get a free Mega Millions ticket using promo code CASH. Jackpocket. Play the New Jersey lottery on your phone. Must be 18 or older to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please visit jackpocket.com/TOS for full terms of service.
With Closet Conversations, and welcome to another episode. Today it is my privilege to bring you Jorge Banda. He is president of B&G Apparel Liquidation Company, or Liquidators, and he's here to talk to us about liquidation, how that's a great way for resellers to get inventory, and give us some insights into what he does. And Jorge, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Jenny. My pleasure to be here.
Oh, that's so great. Well, I'm excited to talk to you because as a reseller myself and someone who is kind of in this industry 24/7, not only as a reseller and a stylist, but someone who co-owns a luxury consignment shop, I have sort of hit this from every angle, and I've been, becoming more and more aware of the liquidation companies that are there to provide resources for resellers and consignment shops, because they've all started contacting us. And also the conversation on YouTube by resellers is getting more and more loud about this as an alternative to traditional sourcing, which would be, say, going into thrift shops. So, Jorge, tell me more about your company, what you do, and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got started about mid-2018. So as you probably know, we deal with shelf pulls, liquidations, closeouts, and the like. Pretty much the way we came about was I saw a real need, with the growth of platforms like Poshmark and eBay, Mercari, and others similar to it. I saw the real need for, people needing diverse assortment of clothing goods. And as you mentioned, pretty much the go-to up until very recently has been thrifting, going to thrift stores. And while that's all fine and well, I think more power to that. We just wanted to be a good, accessible, viable alternative, either alternative or supplementation to thrifting. And, what I specifically saw the need for was, so traditionally the clothing liquidation business is a large or a volume purchaser industry. So what I mean by that is most of the deals that go through that industry are very sizable transactions, 10, 15, $20,000 plus transactions. But there's great inventory that goes through there, right? You get liquidations from fashion department stores, huge fashion retailers like Nordstrom, Macy's, companies that go out of business like Charlotte Russe, sizable retailers. There's great merchandise that goes through, but these type of deals, up until, I'd like to think till we came around, really weren't accessible to the average Joe or Jane. Because they're large volume purchases. You have to buy most of the time, whether it be, multiple pallets or in a truckload. So I thought, hey, why not we actually purchase these volume deals and then just piecemeal them out. That way, you get this traditionally large volume purchaser industry and make it accessible to the average Joe or Jane. And, we start with bundles as small as 10 piece and go up to half or full pallet depending on request, or multiple pallets depending on request. So yeah, that's pretty much how we came about.
Well, Jorge, what is it about this where you've decided to parcel it out to resellers rather than sell it yourself? I mean, is there some rule that you can't sell it yourself and that you have to parcel it out, or could you, in theory, be a reseller of this kind of merchandise?
No, I mean, we definitely can. And, we do like some volume business with volume buyers that we have. As you would probably imagine, we're constantly linking up with new vendors and new buyers. but this is just a niche which I feel was really untapped and I thought would be beneficial for everybody. I don't know, you may have noticed, but in the past, 2-3 years is platforms like Poshmark, because Poshmark's been growing exponentially year over year. I don't know how close you followed it, but between 2018 and 2019, they essentially doubled in size. They went from a $1 billion to a $2 billion industry. So you have these huge, thrift store conglomerates like Goodwill and so on and so forth. And I don't know how close you've been following it, but the thrift prices have gone pretty steep in the past couple of years. The same articles you could get for yeah.
I follow it very closely. The dresses went up to like $8 now. It's mind blowing. The same dress, like one dress, you'll have a Forever 21 dress for $7.99, and then right next to it will be like some like Ralph Lauren couture dress for $7.99. But yeah, they've all gone up, no matter if it's a great piece or not.
Yeah, and that's no coincidence. They're very in tune with the trend. They know what they're sitting on. They know that the value and the demand for this type of merchandise is growing as thrifting is becoming more and more popular. And like I stated, a little bit earlier, I have no problem with thrifting. I think thrifting is great. I thrifted quite a bit in my day as well, But I just think that, for obviously it depends. We have quite a bit of different offerings, but you can get, shelf pulls. Depending on what you're getting, but you can get shelf pulls that are essentially brand new articles with, tagged articles that are almost comparable to thrift price. You know what I mean? So why not? I know, and as a reseller, it just gives it that much more luster. It gives it that much more appeal to be able to supplement your closet or, whatever venue you're selling through with tagged items. So,
well, I agree with that. I agree with that. It's really, really good idea. And I want to ask you, I just want to insert here just for a little bit. So one of the things that I've noticed about the liquidation is that, you basically, it's similar to what I call a reseller box that I've seen on Poshmark. It's basically a grab bag. You don't know what's in there. You don't know till you see it. And so someone else is making that decision for you. And so I think that, from my perspective, I want to understand how you decide what goes in the box, because on your site you have this wonderful template of all the different types of boxes you can buy at different price points. And I guess the premier one is, the highest level under your new system. And so that's where I think, are there going to be any unicorns in there? That box is $69 or up original retail. And so if you take the price that you offer and divide it by the number of pieces, maybe it'll average out to about $10 to $12 per piece, right? So I guess since someone else is making that decision about what I get, it's going to be a big surprise, right? And when you're outsourcing for yourself, you already know ahead of time what you've pulled. So if you have a certain look, a certain style, certain colors, certain brands, certain sizes you're looking for, that at this point is not something you can provide to people who are getting that box. But I understand that you're about to add a lot more customization in there, because I want to know about that, because as someone who resells, I'm a little nervous about letting someone else decide. But if there's more control that I can have over what is coming my way, I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very understandable and a very logical point. And, just to kind of, in answering your question, I kind of want to paint a backdrop. So just imagine when we get merchandise coming into our warehouses, we're essentially getting, like I said, the mixture of either shelf pulls or overstock or overproduction of a lot of big major department stores and other retailers. And everything, it would be so nice if they would separate everything by style and color and size. But in reality, it's just a huge hodgepodge. It's a huge mix of articles. I mean, they just box this stuff out and they send it out. So it's not like an original wholesale purchase or a retail purchase where you're going to get a line item, itemize or a manifest of the inventory that you're buying. This is just, this is all the stuff that's going out, right? And some of it can be pretty much pristine, almost brand new, and then some articles can come damaged. So, our team in turn kind of breaks everything down. We separate it according to our current offerings on our website. But if we were pretty much the model that we have right now is optimized for cost efficiency. And what I mean by that is if we were to put in all the labor and itemize all those thousands and thousands of pieces that we deal with, we would have to pass that cost on to someone, right? It's not so much, that we're trying to create this mystery box type of feel. It's just that we're saying, okay, we're going to piecemeal these large assortments of overstock and shelf full goods, and we're going to try to classify them as best we can to convey as best a representation of what the contents are going to be ahead of time. And then we're going to give you, because one very important piece of the puzzle to consider is that our stylists, the ones that put the boxes together, they're great at that. They're great at what they do. They're very experienced. And ultimately, what I preach to all of my employees is we want to add the absolute most value to our customers, because believe it or not, it's not a sales pitch. Like, I wake up every day like, how can I make my customers the happiest? Because if I can make my customers happy, if I can make them successful, it's a win for everybody. So I guess that's kind of an answer to I guess one aspect of your question, but that kind of is a great segue to something that we kind of went over a little bit earlier before we hopped on the call, and that's that we just did a soft launch of a completely new product lineup, and I'm super excited about this because essentially with this new product lineup, it's a culmination of all the feedback and suggestions pretty much that we've gotten from our clientele, let's say in the past, because our busiest time since launch has been these past, I would say since like October to now. So that's when we've gotten the most influx of feedback and suggestions. So this new product lineup is a culmination of that, and it's extremely detailed. It's way more specified categorization, so that way you can optimize your cost to value ratio when you go in there and make your purchase.
It's interesting. The most important thing that stood out to me, what you said, is that there is an actual, real, and legitimate reason why things come the way they are, because it costs more to sort it and organize it. I mean, that's very, very understandable.
Absolutely.
And keeping the cost down is where everyone's head is at for this reselling. Having said that, I still think it'd be a great idea. And
absolutely.
For my own, what I've been doing, and I do sell I've been on eBay for years and years, like over 20 years, like 25 years or something like that. And I've been on Poshmark very, very active the last 2 years and insanely active the last 12, is that I have come to realize that curation is key, and it's an important thing for me. And so when I go outsourcing, I'm looking at colors, styles, fabrics, brands, and I'm coming up with a certain theme for my closet. So that of my 1,100 items on Poshmark, the same person, if they get in there, has the potential to like everything that's in there, right? So for me, it's very important to have that ability to customize. Now, I did get one of your boxes. I bought one because I wanted to get the scoop. And just a little segue into that is, I opened it up, and it was, it was a nice, sturdy box, high quality box. And because let me tell you, there's boxes and there are boxes. And inside were, what I liked was that the colors that were inside, I would say of the 10 pieces, 7 match what goes on in my closet. I won't have any problem, merchandising them. And I would say 50% of them I would have bought on my own had I seen them, right, if I'd have seen them out there.
Oh, that's great.
And some of the others they just aren't my style. They aren't my customers.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're still, you'll make money on it, because it's almost impossible not to make money on these pieces because you've paid such a good price for them, even with the original value is on average $100 for original retail. Some are like 63, some are 80, some are 125, and all of that. So I felt like when I got it that there's no way I wouldn't be able to double my money at minimum on what was in there, and hopefully triple my money, right? But what's interesting is that this premier box, which is your top box, everything in there is what I would call a junior's brand, okay? Brands like Endless Love, CC, like these are all things that young girls, teenagers and 20-year-olds, this is a young mix of clothing in there. So there's nothing mature in there. And So you show some brands like Veronica Beard, for example, which is what I would call a mature brand, and it's also more of a designer brand. And, so that wasn't in the box, something like that. And so I'm wondering, in terms of customization or going forward, is, like if I'm gearing toward the Century 21 girl or the H&M girl or the Endless person's going to buy Topshop or Endless Love, that is very different than the person who's going to buy Veronica Beard. So I'm just kind of wondering how does that work, and how do these stylists make these decisions on what to put in the box, because it isn't sorted the way the ultimate sorting by color and by size. So they're having to make some decisions on what to choose in there. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know, having watched so many videos, including videos on your company, which we'll get to later, is that this reselling community is active. They want to know. They want to hear from you. They want to know what's going on behind the scenes and what's happening when they get their box. So let's shed some light on that, okay?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much for your feedback. That's really what, I love to hear, because it gets the wheels spinning, and that's ultimately how we make progress and we serve you guys better. So, yeah, no, thank you very much for that. Now, as far as, the current lineup, this new product offerings that we rolled out, let's say they address the biggest pain points that we hear, right? So that's not to say all pain points are addressed. So what you just brought up, that's an excellent point. That is something that we've discussed, and definitely we will look forward to resolving in the future. And that's ultimately formulating like a more differentiating between the actual woman styles, right? Between like young woman and maybe like a more sophisticated, like older woman, you can say, right? So yeah, definitely that's one of the goals. That's one of the goals, to be able to resolve that issue. Yeah, no, so that's an excellent point that you bring up. And, like I said before, we're always looking for feedback, because ultimately that's how we're going to better our product offerings, and that's how that's how we're going to better serve the needs of our customers. So to answer your question, we haven't made that distinction. We haven't made that differentiation as of right now, but that's definitely something that we'll be working on in the future. Is, pretty much the reason that it is the way it is because there are certain brands that are really, really popular, and they're really, really, really called for from our clientele. They're really demanded. And most of those brands happen to be brands that are just geared more towards a younger audience, right? Like the Free Peoples and the Top Shops. And there's certain brands that are very much called for. And so we in turn try to, supplement them in our boxes as much as we can. But I think that's an excellent point, and it's something, like I said before, something that we've internally discussed, and I think is a great idea is to make that distinction, make that differentiation between perhaps like a younger geared audience and versus an older, more sophisticated.
Well, I can tell you that. So on your Instagram where I look, which looks fabulous, by the way, you've got a couple of things highlighted. Oh, you're welcome. You have an Alice and Olivia dress that was on there, and you have like Veronica Beard. And both of those, to me, are a much higher price point than, say, Endless Love. I'll just put that out there. And so you had the ability as a reseller to make more money ultimately, right? Because it's a much higher price. And when I went through the many, congratulations, YouTube, people talking about this liquidation, which is how I found out about you, by the way, is from YouTube. So it's working. People are finding out. But so
Thank you.
When people review the box, it was so funny. This one guy, here I am like cooking dinner in my kitchen. I've got this on in the background. And he's talking about how, like there's this thing on how they evaluate the box. And I broke it down in my mind. If they could price it over $100, they thought they were jumping for joy, meaning price the item in the box, right? So let's say you pay an average of $10 to $15 for something. If they felt like they could price it at $100 or more, they were jumping for joy, versus if they could only price it, say, $30. So it seemed to be the price point they could potentially sell it for that was driving how they felt about it, right? Like feeling like they'd gotten, I guess, quote unquote, something good in there, right? So if I get Veronica Beard or I get Alice and Olivia, there's no question that that's going to be something over $100 that I could sell because their original price points are just, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so that was one thing that I noticed about how people were referring to that. But the other thing I noticed was there, and I want you to really, really talk to this as well. I'll see all these things at once, but there was this point that was being made how there was something could get saturated. Okay, so there'd be like, let's say I'm going to get a certain brand of pant, right? And they're going to get, say they bought a big box, they got 10 pair, but there's 50 other resellers who also got 10 pair of the same pants. And so their ability to sell that, because they're all in basically the same marketplace, it was hurting the price. And that some of them were actually saying there's a glut. We're all a bunch of resellers. We all got, they probably had 500 pair of the same pants, and we've all got them. Now, how am I going to sell them? And one person was saying, well, for a particular thing that there was a glut of, they were just going to take it to a buy-sell-trade place just to get their money back, like just to break even and kind of take that money and move on to something else. So I know that you're getting a lot of inventory. So how does that kind of play into all this when the same people selling on the same platform are getting the same thing? Because you bought them. You know, right?
Yeah, so that's a couple really good points. At first, I believe the individual you're speaking about is Steven Riker. Am I correct?
I actually can't remember, but it was a guy.
Okay. Yeah, he is an awesome guy, awesome individual. I've had a couple of email exchanges with him, and he does an amazing job. I actually reached out to him after watching his video. I was like, hey, honestly, thank you so much for such just an objective, well thought out, articulate review, because he was just an awesome individual. I think he's a great asset to that community. And so I just want to make mention of that. But you brought a couple of really good points. So first, let me circle back around to your first question about, how you see there's certain brands, right? There's certain brands that are extremely high value, like the Veronica Beers, Alice and Olivia's, so on and so forth. There's a long list of articles that, the average retail price for an article is going to be $150, $200. Now, this is a super, super important point, and I'm really happy you brought this up because I didn't even think to bring it up, to be honest, but it's something that needs to be that needs to be addressed. People need to know. So obviously, we would love to supply everyone's box with the highest value articles that we have, and honestly, that's exactly what we try to do. However, one needs to bear in mind that by the time we get the articles, they've already been through various retail outlets. Let's give the example of Nordstrom. So if they start off at Nordstrom, provided they're not like a Nordstrom Rack exclusive brand, they'll start off in Nordstrom, then they'll go to Nordstrom Rack. If they don't in turn sell Nordstrom Rack, sometimes they get sent to this other brick and mortar called Last Chance. It's the Last Chance store. And I believe there's only one brick and mortar. It's out in Arizona. And then if it doesn't sell there, there you go. And if it doesn't sell there, then it comes to us, right? And we can get a mixture of an article, of any combination of like an article that I just mentioned that went through that whole journey, or likewise it could have came straight from Nordstrom. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate is that the good stuff, the really primo stuff, by the time it gets to us, is pretty much all gone, right? Because the demand is extremely high. So there's there may be a false impression that we have all these, that we're just, sourcing the best brands that are out there, and that would be the dream, right? But in reality, we need in line with what we are, being that we are liquidators and we work with shelf pulls, overstock. The reality is that the really, really good brands, the really, really good articles are going to be, they're going to be seldom. They're going to be seldom. They're not going to be as prevalent as other mid-tier brands or even like mid-high tier brands, just given the nature of supply and demand. So,
that's a
good just
point.
to kind of, So, and that's what everybody's, a lot of people think that, we're just sitting on all this amazing merchandise, and we're
you're hoarding it.
But that's,
you have it like a
exactly. That's the word I was looking for. That we're just hoarding all the good merchandise, and it's quite the opposite. I try to get the absolute best merchandise I can and source it and incorporate it in everybody's order, right? But to kind of circle back to your earlier question, how do we put these things together, right? How do we curate them? Well, we curate them. It's very simple. We try to instill the most value that is distributed in any given bundle based off of our current inventory, right? So representative and based off of what our current inventory is. So if we could put, and maybe one day it will. Maybe one day it'll come. Where we can just put the absolute best high-end brands in everyone's bundle. But until that day comes, we work as best we can with what we have, and we do try to supplement any high-end brand with we just try to add the most value as possible. That's the easiest way to really put it out there.
All right, so let me ask you this. So I did not get a unicorn in my box. I did not get the mythical Veronica Beard dress, okay? So why did I not get that dress?
I'm sorry.
I mean, okay, like I'm being serious. So, okay, that dress is somewhere. Let's say there's 20 of them, right? I don't know how this works. Like if you go through a pallet at a time or a box at a time to evaluate, if you go through everything at once, like I don't know how it works, but like I didn't get it, but someone's going to get it, right? So what's going to determine who gets that box? And obviously it's conscious because you're trying to create value. You're trying to mentally, make this group of 10 things be the most, have the most potential. So somebody somewhere made that decision at some point. Okay, if you're going to get the Veronica Beard dress, then I'm going to give you something else that's lesser than the average to make up for it or something like that. Like, how does that work? Because what would be awesome is if you had a completely luxe box that was all the good stuff, if you want to call it, and just go ahead and quit torturing everyone. Like, am I going to get the unicorn? Just have the box that's the good stuff. I mean, that's another way to deal with it.
Right. The only thing with that is, there just isn't enough supply to meet the demand. If we were to formulate a super luxe box, it would be sold out in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And there would only be a handful of people that would be privy to it.
Right.
Well,
let me.
Really, there is no bias that goes into filling a box because just to kind of paint you a background, right? Like, it's not, we don't have articles separated by brand, right? So we don't have like the Veronica Beard, the Veronica Beard aisle or whatever. They're all separated based off of the criteria of each respective bundle, right? So if an article meets the premier criteria, then it's in the premier section of our warehouse. So it's really just kind of a luck of the draw. Like there's no this person's gonna get this article. It's all just we're separating just masses of clothes every day, and we're separating it based off of the product criteria listed on our site. So it just goes to its respective, little nook in our warehouse, and in turn, that merchandise gets grabbed by one of our stylists and put into one of the bundles. So it can be that you get something, one of those like super premier brands that you mentioned, or it can be that you don't. But in any case, even though it may not be one of those 10, 15 most sought after super premium brands, it'll still nonetheless be a brand that is fitting of the criteria and that is ultimately going to have a good MSRP or a good retail value.
So, George, I'm thinking about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and those golden tickets right now. That's what I'm thinking about. That's how this is.
Right.
Well, okay, I'm going to do a sidebar because I want to go into you have a really good customer service situation going on there, really trying to work with people, which I think is terrific. But before I get to that, Alex and Olivia, okay, obviously you're getting your stuff through Nordstrom. I don't know where all you get your stuff, but are you getting things directly from brands? And I'm going to ask you this specifically because I lived in New York, and where I lived, so I lived in New York 16 years, and the last year I was near Flatiron. So up the street and to the left was one sample sale, and up the street and to the right was the other sample sale building. I mean, there's many in New York.
Yeah.
And I remember going into the Alice and Olivia sample sale and buying a gross amount of stuff, right? They had all this inventory, plus they had the sample section in the back. And I am still selling from the stuff that I bought, and I have made so much money.
Oh, that's
and I'm
awesome.
not saying I'm not talking about paying $5 for anything. I was paying, $200 for something, or $250 or $150 for something that I was selling for $500, $600, $700, $800, right? So I want to keep mention that. So it wasn't like a box like this, but the ability to make money on that stuff was enormous, because I mean, I'd have a $900 skirt I'd paid $100 or $150 for, that I knew was so beautiful, because I would only pick the good stuff, of course, that I could sell for $500, $600, right? So that is me, basically, that's another way to get the good stuff, is directly from the brand itself, because any brand who's doing a sample sale obviously has a lot of stuff to move, and it doesn't all sell at the sample sale, and they take it back or do whatever they do with it. But are there other avenues that you've been looking at as a liquidator to get merchandise that isn't specifically whatever routes you're using now, but like directly to brands who like a Veronica Beard, like an Allison and Olivia?
Absolutely. I mean, that's my job. That's one of my main jobs, day in, day out. And we do have a very large network of vendors, and that list is getting bigger every day, whether it be like the liquidation department of a major department store or an individual brand. However, one very important thing that maybe a lot of people don't know is every brand is very, very protective of their brand. They're very protective of their brand. They're very protective of where their articles end up. So, some brands, I've had big brands reach out to me personally and, start a conversation. And then, there's other big brands that won't give you the time of day because they're very particular about where their clothing ultimately ends up. A lot of these brands, a lot of these premier brands, these really prestigious brands, they don't want their articles ending up through any liquidation channel or anything like that. So it's really dependent on that particular brand. But as far as what we do, like I said, that's one of my utmost priorities. Why? Because I ultimately want to add the most value to you, right? I want to add the most value to my customers. So that's something that we're always working on.
Well, let's talk about the big picture for a minute, because this is an important point to make, I think, is that there is a lot of stuff out there, and there is so much that we can't wrap our heads around it. And there is no shortage of stuff at all to be acquired and put back into the marketplace through this whole reselling business. And, the fact that all these stores now are moving into the rental market, and then a lot of these brands that are going to start renting their clothes, and then they're going to have to resell them or get rid of them. And so the cycle of what's out there, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happens in terms of production, is that if we're producing merchandise at the same rate that we've always produced it, and yet the secondary market has grown to this, 20-something billion dollar industry, what does that mean? I mean, how do you wrap your head around that if we're still pumping it out at the same rate, right? If we're
that's like a philosophical question.
If we're slowing manufacturing, we're getting real deep here on Closet Conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they're slowing manufacturing and they're growing the secondary market, then that's a great thing, right? Then we all know that there's this whole resale consignment companies like The Real and ThredUp. I mean, I'm just a sidebar, not before you answer, is that I had this consignment shop, and we took in 1,000 pieces. It was like 900 and something pieces from one estate. We're talking about one home in one part of LA. That was, and that was turning away many other things, hundreds of things that were sellable, but not in a consignment environment, right? They would have been great for resale, just to resell. But I just, I just am always trying to understand the scope of what's being made and what is already out there and what already exists. I mean, one customer in our store says, the scarf collection, but I have about 500 Hermes scarves. I'm just not going to wear them all. And it was someone who had a culture of covering their head. And they're like, well, I got like 500. Now, that's 500 for one person in one home somewhere. We got 1,000 in this home over here. And my store only holds 2,000 units, right? So you've got two people, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the scope of what's out there is unbelievable. And so everything is changing about resale, everything about this whole secondary market. And what you're doing is such an important part of all of this because you are taking these clothes at some point in the life cycle. And what's interesting is that you've talked about how Nordstrom has already tried to sell it on their own, on the clearance. They took it to the clearance center, and then they stick it to Last Chance, where I have been, by the way. Not impressed. And then at that point, it comes to you. Like, that is extraordinary. And then from you, it comes to me. And then from me, I'm going to go try to sell it to this other person who may or may not wear it and try to resell it themselves one day. Like, that's a lot of activity for one garment, one piece of clothing.
Yeah.
And it's taken me this long to understand why they call it the rag trade, because it's only been as a reseller I've been exposed to it enough to understand the overwhelming amount of things that already exist that are choking this world, and how, sorting through it is the new retail, is going through what's already there. I mean, how do you fit into that? Where do you see what you're doing as part of that picture?
I see it as a great thing for us, to be honest. I see the like you just described, the direction in which, that, like, let's say that the second life cycle or the second cycle of clothing is going, is extremely beneficial to us. And it's extremely beneficial to our customers because, people in turn in this, I don't want to say it's a new industry, but it's really taken light. It's really taken fire in this past couple of years, and it's afforded a lot of people to create a very lucrative side business or sometimes a full-time business. And there's people that have really perfected the craft and make a heck of a living doing it. So to answer your first question, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see how we adapt to that, how the primary manufacturing and production versus the increase in second cycle clothing, how that how that evolves. I have no idea what that'll look like, but ultimately I believe, a business like ours that in turn, affords this type of merchandise to people or makes it accessible to people in digestible small forms, if they're just getting started or, larger, whether it be a half pallet or, 100-piece bundle or whatever, they're a little bit more seasoned or a little bit more high value or high volume, excuse me. Ultimately, I think it'll be great for us and our customers alike.
Well, that is, you are in a sweet spot because you're right. I mean, you are an important part of this cycle and this life cycle for clothing. And I just see enormous growth there for what you're doing. And I think it's fascinating that this is a wonderful and legitimate way to make money by reselling either full-time or part-time, and that you're a part
Absolutely.
of that. Now, I just wanted to go back about, now you told me before the podcast that, okay, this is a family-owned business. So tell me about this. This is all in the family, which is terrific. Can you tell me a little bit more about what the structure is and what's going on behind the scenes and who all's involved in this and where you're located? I think you are in San Diego, but you have like a warehouse in LA. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're a very small company. We're 10 employees. I mean, we're only a year and a half old, and we didn't even really start getting going until 2019 and really start getting going until the past 6 months. So we're a really small company, and I mean, it employs myself and all my siblings and my mom. So, it's myself, my brother, my two sisters, and my mom. My mom helps me with acquisition. She has a lot of contacts in the industry. She knows a lot of different vendors and a lot of people in the industry since the early 90s. My brother is our warehouse manager, and my sisters are both curators. So they're they're part of the team that actually curates the orders. And yeah, like you said, we have our fulfillment center is based out of San Diego, California. And then our central hub, like our receiving warehouse, is in LA, just essentially a big warehouse where we store all of our inventory. We intake all of our inventory. And then we, in turn, based off of our orders, we piecemeal the corresponding inventory down to our fulfillment center in San Diego and fill orders out of there.
So the merchandise goes two places then. It's all shipped to LA, and then from there they work with that inventory and then ship it to San Diego, from which you then parcel it out to people who buy it. Does that make sense? Did I get that right?
Yeah, because our fulfillment center in San Diego is just that. It's a fulfillment center. You know, it's not a very large warehouse. We just intake multiple pallets at a time, pretty much every day, you can say. And then we, in turn, you know, have our team that breaks them down, and then our team that fulfills the order. But yeah, LA, you know, as you probably very well know, it's a huge fashion hub. You have the LA Fashion District there. You have a lot of large brands, especially, I don't know, are you familiar with like Revolve.com?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like Fashion Nova. I mean, they're all right around there, right? So a lot of the brands that they incorporate into their product lineup, they're all based out of, not all, but you know, a good chunk of them are based around that LA area. So it's just strategically, it just makes sense, and it's been working out pretty good for us.
Revolve is kind of interesting. They're publicly traded. I was reading about recently, and it's so interesting because they are basically, if I could interpret them correctly, because I'm not a Revolve customer. I'm a different generation than that, but I'm older, so I know they're out there, but I don't shop in that. But I understand what they're doing, and you know, they're kind of trading on the whole social media, celebrity of the moment, pop culture thing to get things sold. And it's really, you know, even though it's not what I'm doing in my life or where I am, it is absolutely happening in the world. And the fact that they are able to build their brand off of that is really quite fascinating. When I found out they were publicly traded, I went online and was looking at a lot of their videos and all of that, and I'm like, wow, you know, this is kind of hip and cool and happening. It's a shame it wasn't 30 years ago for me, you know, because you know, it's just so fascinating, but it is trendy. I mean, that's the thing, is that, and what's so interesting for resellers is that what's selling is what's trending, and so there's a lot of education that people have to do on their own to stay on top of what is selling, because the whole reason you got the merch is it didn't sell. I mean, this is a salient point, is that it didn't sell for Nordstrom. It didn't sell for Revolve. Whether they ordered too many or not, they didn't sell enough of it. And so now it's being passed on because it didn't sell. And so in terms of this whole life cycle, is it that they gave up too soon? You know, I don't know how long Nordstrom or Revolve tries to sell their things, but it is fast fashion. These are not, I mean, a lot of these brands are fast fashion brands, even though it's not a Century 21. They're trendy. They're meant to go on what's happening now. And so, okay, they missed, you know, it was hot for, you know, a month, and now it's not. They're on to the next thing. So I think that's going to create a lot of opportunity in the reselling segment to take these things that are trendy, super trendy, and try to move them on to someone who still wants that trend, right? Because if it's a Revolve brand, certain people are looking for it, and it's not people my age. It's people much younger, and so the price point is lower. And so again, we're trading on, you know, you're trading on things that have a certain dollar value meant for a certain customer. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand it in order to sell it and sell it well. And I think the fact that these things are new with tags is a huge benefit. I think that, you know, everything that I got looks great. I'm just going to steam it all, and I'll get it up, and I'll do a YouTube video on it and things like that. But, you know, it is part of the dynamic of what you are doing. And, you know, it all plays into, it didn't sell for them because they gave up on it too soon. And I always take the long tail approach to everything that I sell. So I'm always fascinated when I find something, whether it's through a company like yours or I find it on my own, how they gave up. They gave up so soon on this thing, you know. It's still amazing.
Yeah.
It's just as amazing.
Well, they just got to turn over fast, you know. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. It's all about cash
their
flow.
thing is they just got to turn over fast. I mean, they got to clear. I mean, I don't think it's so much that they just gave up on the merchandise soon. I think it's just, they just got to get the new stuff in and the old stuff out, and by old, I mean, it could be a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and they have certain quotas they got to meet. They have certain product lines they have to introduce, and, but real quick, just a very quick clarification point. So, a good amount of the clothes that we get has gone through that cycle, but we're also working with and this is a growing list of brands that we're working with directly, so we can get like their overproduction. So some of this clothes is even polybagged, like polywrapped.
Wow.
So, but and as we continue to grow, God willing, all we're gonna do is just introduce better and better options and offerings, and just a better lineup.
Well, I think that sounds terrific. Now, we had talked earlier before the podcast. Now, you do a lot of charitable things as well. I mean, you are donating to local causes. Now, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that's a wonderful thing. I had a completely different career in charity fundraising before I ever did anything with clothing and reselling, and so I'm all about the giving back. But tell me where that fits in, because that really, here you are, family owned and run. You've got 10 people. You sound like someone who really wants this to not only do well and grow financially, but to really serve your customer, which are resellers like myself. And the fact that even with all of that, here you are, you're giving back and you're getting involved in the community. It just, it just sounds like the right way to be doing what you're doing, to me.
I appreciate that very much. That's very kind. But I mean, just if we could just take a step back from everything. I mean, at the end of the day, as a human being, my job on this planet is to leave it a little bit better when I leave than when I got here. So, like, I'm super interested. Since I was a kid, I've been very interested in like recycling. Like, I always want to know how I could monetize like a recycling business, because obviously I got to make a living, but at the same time, if I could do something that could reduce waste or serve the planet in some way, then great. I'm also super interested in like sustainable food production, and that's a project that's a field that I hope to get into in the near future. But yeah, I mean, so, what I mean to say is, absolutely. I mean, any way we can serve, any way we can help, we're always super happy to do it. We do donate quite frequently to local shelters. My mom is also pretty active in south of the border in Mexico. She works with I don't know I'm blanking on the name of the type of organization, but it's pretty much like a church with nuns that brings in like kids that don't have parents. So we donate clothing to them as well. And something that I also wanted to do for 2020 with our affiliates is I wanted to bi-weekly do like a B&G sponsored giveaway of some sort. It would be, very much dependent on ideas that the affiliates have or any specific causes or anything. And, we just want to, more than anything, obviously everybody's got to make a living, but, if we can be just a source of good, just make any little bit of difference for us, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And we're in the process right now of devising like our own organization, but I can't shed a lot of light on that because it's still in the workings. But that'll be something that'll be coming up.
Well, I just love how that sounds. Now, we are getting toward the end of our time here, but before I ask you about anything else you want people to know about B&G Trading, I want to let the listeners know that we have something fun lined up for them. Now, you and I, before the podcast, had talked about what we could do for the listeners that would be super fun. So one of the things is we're going to do a giveaway, a 10-piece giveaway.
Absolutely.
And so what people will have to do, and I'm going to do a little event on my Instagram, which is Jennie Girls Closet, about this, but people will just need to like my Instagram and like your Instagram, B&G Trading. You have your own Instagram, which is a lot bigger than mine. It's growing good. Good job. So
that's credit to our social media manager. She's great.
Is she a member of the family? One of your family members?
No. She's one of our employees, but she's amazing. She's a wizard with that stuff. I'm unfortunately not the most well-versed social media guy, but yeah, I know she does a great job.
Well, she's doing a great job. So people just have
Thank you.
to like your page, like my page, and tag one person in the post, and they'll get a drawing for a 10-piece box. One of your, is it your Premier box? Is that the right one? The Premier box?
Absolutely, yes.
That's the box that I got. I got that box, and that's a really cool box. So that will be happening. This will go on for 1 week. We'll give people 1 week to do that, and so after this airs, and so that those dates will be in the announcement on my site. I'm not sure what you're doing on yours, if anything, but just everyone can check my Jennie Girl's Closet for more information to like that. So that'll be fun for listeners. And then the other thing is, now we've created a special code, Jennie Girl code. Tell people what that code is for.
So the Jennie Girl code, it will give you 20% off of pretty much any purchase on our website. The only thing that is excluded are the pallets, and that's just simply because, you know, if we could afford to give you guys 20% off the pallets, I promise you guys we would. But as you would imagine, for something higher volume like that, the margin is simply not there. But pretty much 20% off everything else, and that'll be good for 30 days. And just a quick little clarification point. So the Premier bundle that the winner of this giveaway will get is actually not the same one that you got, simply because, you know, we just did a soft launch of a few new product offerings, and the new Premier is actually a little bit of an upgrade. Well, I think it's a big upgrade, right? But I'm trying to downplay it a little bit. It's now it's a $69 plus MSRP now. Now they all come with original hang tags, so no reticket items or anything like that. So $69 plus MSRP, original hang tags, and like I said, we're always incorporating new brands. So definitely a great little bundle.
Well, that's terrific. And make sure you spell it JennieGirl for Jennie Girl. Well, you know, George, I'm really enjoying talking to you, because I can talk all day long about this stuff. I really can. So tell me a little more. Like, what haven't I asked you that you want people to know about your company? Because I just want to segue with that. Is that having the inventory that people want at the end of the day? It seems to be the key. You got to have what people want, and what people want changes. It's a moving target.
Yes.
And what they want today, they might not want next month. But I think that what people want, and I certainly think resellers, is that you want to be able to have the best possible inventory that you can at the best price so that you can sell to people, and to be able to supplement what you're doing on your own, because it's exhausting. I mean, there is no stone I have not unturned. I have bought inventory at every conceivable way that you can buy something. I've done it from from the lowest point of digging through the bins, putting my hand on things no one should touch, to being on on Rodeo Drive, where I have bought things that I have flipped and made thousands of dollars on. So, like, I have been in every single environment, and the key is the inventory. And I love the fact that you have something that people can try. They can try it out. You've got this wonderful, return policy or guarantee in the first, I guess, when they first sign up, because, people, it is real money. It is hard cash. They, are always, there's something kind of different about when you're in control. You've gone out there, you sourced, you went to the Goodwill or whatever, you handed them your credit card, you went home, you know exactly what happened. That is exhausting. It is absolutely physically and mentally draining, and yet very exciting. The hunt, right? The hunt kind of will supersede sometimes. I will hunt until I literally collapse or have a headache because I haven't eaten, because I'm so into it. But then the fact that we can now supplement all of that with this kind of liquidation, which is very different, and I think a lot more affordable than, say, wholesale. Because
way more.
The price point, and wholesale is something that they offer on Poshmark, but it's very expensive. And I think what you're offering is a really good alternative to that. But I think it's a wonderful offering. It's a wonderful thing for people to be able to find a way to source differently and to just try out something like this, And, we all waste money going out and having a few beers with a friend, and you can take that same amount of money, buy a box and try it out and see what happens. And at least, you have something more than a memory when you're done. At the end of the day, you have something tangible that you can sell and build. And I think supplementing anything you might find that's pre-owned, used, whatever, with things that are new with tags I think it's a really good way to mix it up. But all that said, what more do you want people to know about B&G Trading as we close out this interview?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll just probably close off by addressing a couple of things that you mentioned. Like you said, it is a moving target. Fashion and the trends is a moving target, but that is one of the beauties about, a business like ours, because it is, it is clothes that is coming down a pipeline, whether it be a fashion department store or a very popular brand, the turnaround time between when they produce it and it gets to us is, I would say, 12 to 18 months, maybe 24 months. So although it is a moving target, I would kind of argue you have a much better chance at capitalizing on it versus thrifting, because thrifting, you could thrift something that's 10, 15, 20 years old. Now, of course, granted, there are things that are timeless, but, just addressing, like what you said, it's a moving target. So this is something that, you're not picking it up directly from the retailer, but you know what, at one point it came from there and it could have not been too long ago. So that's one thing. Another huge point that you brought up, and I'm glad you did, because I wouldn't have brought it up, it just slipped my mind, but it's very, very important, or at least we're very proud of it, I should say. We are the only liquidation company that offers any type of warranty, any type of guarantee. Our 30-day guarantee, obviously we're not Amazon.com. We can't offer, the most luxurious guarantee on our products, but we do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not happy with your items, we're happy to refund you minus the return cost of shipping. And quite frankly, like I said, we're the only liquidation company that does that. Any one of our competitors, all sales are final, sold as is, where is kind of deal. So, it's something that, we really went out, we went out on a limb, like really took a leap of faith. And I like to think that it's resonating with people, it's paying off. And more than anything, it like you said, it gives people the confidence to kind of go out on a limb and try something new. So yeah, extremely proud of that. And then one of the, kind of like a side note, but I think it's super important to bring up because it gets mentioned to us quite a bit. And honestly, I was like unaware of it completely before it was even brought up to us. I was like, I hadn't even thought of it. And that's that, you hear talk about there being food deserts in the U.S. Like there's places where, there's only fast food and the closest market is, 30, 45 minutes away or whatever. It is the same thing with clothing. So, like, although it's not a term, it's like a clothing desert, right? Where, we've had multiple people send us emails thanking us for being a viable option for them because, the closest thrift store or Goodwill is an hour and a half away the next town down. So the fact that they could order something from us and then show up at their doorstep is just very, very valuable to them. So, and then I guess lastly, people always seem to pit us against thrifting. And I kind of laugh because that's the last angle we ever take. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I've thrifted countless times in my life, and I will probably always continue to thrift. I think thrifting is great. You find gems all the time. I've found some of the coolest clothing and furniture ever thrifting. So we are in no way trying to overtake or pit ourselves against thrifting. We just want to be a supplementation or a viable alternative. And especially, by chance, it's, just because thrift stores are rising up or driving up their prices. I mean, we're pretty much comparable with thrift stores price-wise. So I think that's just great. It's great for customers. It's great for the customer, right? Because it just gives them more options. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all I got.
Okay. All right, George. Well, that's it. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations. We've been speaking with Jorge Banda of B&G Trading Apparel Liquidators. If you use the Jennie Girl code on the B&G website, you can, for 30 days, get 20% off any purchase other than a pallet. We also have the 10-piece Premier Box giveaway that will take place on Instagram. You just have to like my Instagram page, Jennie Goes Closet, and the B&G Instagram page and tag one person, and the B&G folks will pick at random the winner for that box. And I don't have the exact box. I have a similar box, and I'm very pleased with what I have. And I just appreciate, George, so much you talking, because if you spend any time at all on YouTube and this reselling community, which I really didn't know was a thing until a few years ago, because I just was on a different side of this, and it's a very active and very vocal group, and it's a very large group of people that are all basically trying to wrap their heads around how do you do this thing called reselling, how do you do it better, how do you make money, and it's making a difference in people's lives in a really big way, and they're all
absolutely
looking of unique ways to do it more and to do it better, and I'm just glad that your company is out there and is a part of this ever-evolving, ever-changing secondary market. And I wish you all the best, and I'm really glad to know that as president of this company that you are actively listening to what's happening out there. You're taking note of the YouTube reviews. You're constantly trying ways to address all of these issues and make what you offer even better. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, I'm very impressed with that. And I just glad to have met you and glad to have you on this podcast. And I hope that we could have you on again in the future.
Absolutely, Jenny, whenever you want. And likewise, I want to thank you so very much for connecting with me and giving me an opportunity to speak on your podcast and give you a little background on my business. It was an absolute pleasure. And it was great learning about you and learn a little bit about your history and your interest in this. So thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you your audience, and hopefully we can serve you guys as best we can and continue to evolve and better our services for your guys' benefit.
Well, thank you so much again, George. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Jorge Banda with B&G Trading. Thank you again for listening to Closet Conversations. I look forward to having you with me on a future episode.
If you enjoyed the intro music, that song is called Black Hat, performed by Jennie Walker, written by Jennie Walker and Tommy Farragher. It's available on iTunes worldwide now.
Play the lottery with Jackpocket. What's Jackpocket? Jackpocket is the lottery app that lets you play New Jersey lottery games right on your phone. People have won over $5 million playing the lottery on Jackpocket. Download Jackpocket and get a free Mega Millions ticket using promo code CASH. Jackpocket. Play the New Jersey lottery on your phone. Must be 18 or older to play. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please visit jackpocket.com/TOS for full terms of service.